Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode on Glory Reds FC. It's your boys, Benito and my boy D. What's good, my guy?
Yeah, man. I wish I could say all is well, but
It's not
I
unfortunate.
understand. I
mm,
understand. I understand. And ish, it's really unfortunate, but we have to do this. We need to give the listeners what they want, what they deserve to
true,
hear. Now, before we
true.
get into that, I need to disclose that I actually didn't watch the game. And I
Okay,
told you about it. We had some sort of power
peace.
cut here in Dar es Salaam, like in the area that I
Yeah,
was. So I wasn't able to watch the game.
yeah,
But when the electricity did manage to come on, I checked the lineup. I looked at the score, and
yeah,
red flags and fireworks and bombs started going off when I saw
yeah,
all these things. And I had so many questions, even though when I saw the lineup, it made sense to me. You know what I mean? It made sense why we
yeah,
lost. Now, I didn't watch the game. You did. So, D,
yeah.
for the match reaction this week, man, we were dismantled by Brighton. Tell me, and tell me what man. Tell me what gone. How
All
did
right.
we get smacked up by? How did we lose? How did our fortress get penetrated? How?
Yeah, yeah. It's so unfortunate how we lost over this weekend, and I actually also started the game like late. I started the match, I think, 30 minutes late,
Oh, okay.
and by that time we already conceded our first goal. Now, I'm gonna be brutally honest over here. And I think it
What's
goes without saying a lot of Man United fans share my same, thoughts
sentiments? Yeah.
globally. You know what I mean? And I think it's a combination of what you call this, of fault, of blame on both the manager and the players, you
Okay.
know. So just for those people maybe who missed the match or didn't watch it or whatever, let me just go through the starting lineup real quick before I jump into it.
Mm-hmm.
So our keeper, of course, was Andre Onana. We had Diego Dalot starting at right back, Victor
Mm-hmm.
Lindelof Martinez, our centre backs, and then we had Regulon starting as our left back.
Pause.
Casemiro, of course, was at CDM, and then, controversial start by Scott McTominay
Mm-hmm.
and Ericsson, in that midfield. And then, of course, we had Bruno Fernandes, Hoyland, and Marcus Rashford. So I remember when the lineup first came out, I sent you a screenshot. I sent you a screenshot. I sent the screenshot in the Glory Reds WhatsApp group, and I remember highlighting Scott McTominay, Regulon, although he actually had quite a good game compared to a lot of our players, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I can't remember who was the last player I circled. I think it was Bruno Fernandes. And the reason why I circled him because
He was out of
it's
place.
sort of he was out of place. You
Mm.
know, he was out of place. Now, looking at this formation, because on a lot of apps it showed it differently, right? So I think probably the most accurate one is 4-1-2-1-2, right? And in with that, still, you know, when I look at that formation, I'm like, rather he should have gone with the back five, 1-2-1. But I'll explain later. I'll explain
Okay.
later. So yeah, so obviously starting with the starting lineup. So for me, I'm like my first thought was he started Scott McTominay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but we've started Scott McTominay before in the past in that midfield three, and it hasn't worked. Why should it be any different today? You
Mm.
know, I
Mm.
think that's the thing that annoyed me. It was that, and also not having clarity on exactly where is he going to start. Because, like I said, a lot of apps had the formation set out differently. So in some apps, it showed that he was the holding with Casemiro, and then
Mm-hmm.
in some apps, it showed he was just in the midfield with Ericsson, which nevertheless, it still doesn't work, in terms of how we set up our midfield, right? We know the
Yeah.
winning formula, unfortunately or fortunately, is Casemiro, Ericsson, and Bruno Fernandes. We
Yeah.
tried it with Mount, it doesn't work.
No.
Last season we tried it with Fred, it worked to some degree. but we don't have Fred anymore. So obviously we don't have that other option of that midfield three.
Spreaker is no longer with us anymore.
So that was my main concern. And I think that concern played into the match, right? Then, of course, you have got Diego Delo. Diego Delo, of course, a lot of, split decisions in the fan base, and rightfully so. Some people preferred Aaron Wan-Bissaka in that position. Some people preferred Delo. I can see why some people were on the fence of either or the other, especially when now people are asking themselves questions, say, oh, what if, Aaron Wan-Bissaka was in those positions? Maybe he could have shut them down even before the opposition got a chance to put something in the box.
Like the second goal for Kroos.
Like the second goal, exactly. Because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those goals will come down the left-hand flank, right?
No, the first one came from the right, and the second came from the left.
Sorry, first, yes, it came from the left. So they come down, and I was just scratching my head, and I don't like getting into these like conversations of comparison and whatever.
Yeah.
But you just ask yourself, like, if Bissaka would have started, could he have shut it down? Could have Dave saved one of these goals? But that's a conversation for another day. Let's leave it here at this match. So I think on Eriksen's side, or not Eriksen, on Ten Hag's side, sorry.
Yeah.
I think the mistake with him was just player selection and player positioning.
Okay.
And then with the players, the fault on their side was just not playing up to scratch.
Yeah.
Not reacting. You know what I mean? The opposition just looked way more determined to beat and play us than we were to them. There was points in the match where I was wondering, I'll let you ask the question now, but there was literally a point during the match, like I was asking myself, are we even playing at home? It was that bad. Like, are we actually playing at home, or is this an away match? Because we just didn't have that fight and that drive, to go and do something with this game, to go and win it. Ask the question.
Remember back in the days when we were under the Ole regime, there were a couple of games where we were wondering why United are not going at teams, like they were not attacking them. It's like they were just allowing the guys to come, and these guys were like wondering, like, what's happening? Then they came at us. Was it that kind of game? Like, where we did United take the fans back to the trauma that we have experienced?
Pretty much. Like, again, it was just we couldn't string passes together. We played like we had no identity. We had no chemistry. It was very difficult for us to make clear and cut decisions. And when we did have the advantage, again, it just came down to a lot of individualism in that squad of, I'm going to go and take this on for myself. And I remember I spoke about this in a previous podcast when we were talking about Rashford, and I said, Rashford, you mentioned that he's being selfish, and I think we both agreed on that. And then something else that I touched on to say that he plays like he doesn't trust these players, And funny enough, when I went and listened to what other people had to say about the situation, a lot of people bring up the same thing, to say he literally plays like he doesn't trust the players around him.
But that's nonsense. That doesn't make sense.
Like, you know what, Nair? If he genuinely trusted the players, he would have been making those passes.
Bro, you're getting 300,000 a week. You are supposed to trust those people. Like, this is not even a question. How are we even discussing this, Steve?
He's literally playing like he doesn't trust them. Because you'll find in situations like, yes, I think there was one play that Rasmus, could have made a play to Rashford, but he trusted himself.
He gave Rashford made run.
Yes,
and Rashford,
but that was one instance. That was one instance of Rasmus not giving the ball back to Rashford. But with Rashford to Rasmus, that occurred more often than none. Where he could have passed to Rasmus and he didn't.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, it's that thing of, I want to take the responsibility on my shoulders. You know what I mean? I'm not going to trust the players around me to do what they're supposed to do. Running down,
can I tell you something very interesting?
He doesn't do it.
Oh, sorry.
They were literally, I'll let you get to it. There was literally this one chance. And Rashford is not a lefty. Yes, every now and then you take a shot with his left and somehow it goes in. But there was this one chance that it was never ever going to make that shot. You know what I mean? He was never gonna make it. The keeper had that corner post. You know what I mean? Safeguarded everything. The angle was too tight. The defender was just on him. You know what I mean?
He had to cut
All
back.
he needed to do was just take an extra step, cut it back into Rasmus, and he would have dealt with it. You know, but he didn't do it. What explanation apart from him being selfish and him doesn't and the fact that he doesn't trust Rasmus, you know what I mean, could explain why he didn't make that pass? Absolutely ridiculous. You know, like Rashford, man, you spoke about it last week. You know, about he needs to be dropped if he's gonna be continuing with these performances, and I sort of argued against that to say that, well, not really argued against it, but sort of like giving why I think he's kept in is that regardless of how bad he plays, he still somehow ends up with an assist or a goal, right? And we even spoke about the ball that went out, unfortunately, you know, for Rasmus's goal. Otherwise, that could have been a Rashford assist, and the conversation would have been different today, you know.
Not really, D.
And you know, the difference to what I was pointing out was, yes, Rashford is playing bad and is playing horrible. And this is not me condoning how he's playing. But there's a difference in Rashford 2 seasons ago playing bad and Rashford now playing bad. You know, 2 seasons ago, Rashford playing bad is Rashford not completing dribbles, you know, Rashford not tracking back, which obviously, yes, he did have an instance yesterday where he wasn't tracking back, you know. Rashford not, you know, making clear-cut decisions, Rashford not crossing balls into the box, etc. The complete game, you know, the whole performance was horrible, right? Now, Rashford playing bad, it's not the complete game. It's just decision-making. That's just like, if you made that decision, if you made an alternative decision, it literally could have been a different conversation. If those 4 chances, instead of you passing to Rasmus, instead of you being greedy, because you beat the defender, you drove yourself into the box, you put yourself in a good position to make a ball into the box, but you didn't do it. Whereas then when he was performing bad, he never used to do that. Even he was not beating the defenders, he was not getting into good positions to make the cross in. You know what I mean? He was not having successful dribbles, but he's doing all of that. But the end product is what's lacking, you know? So I believe that the Rashford now, with his bad performances, there's so much little to correct. Whereas then it was everything to correct. Now it's just, my guy, in that final third, after you've beaten your defender, put the fucking ball in the box. That's it. You know what I mean? It's just that and tracking back and just solid. That's it. You don't have to have conversations about everything else. That's literally all you have to do.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
What did you? I can see you're itching to.
Nah, no, I'm listening to you. For me, D, I've always been very critical about Rashford, and when I give him praise, when he deserves the credit, and you know it. And last season,
100%.
and I wanna point out, because I think people don't really understand when they said that I called you out last season about Rashford. So let's just clarify the thing. So Rashford obviously has always, not obviously, prior to being in the good form that he had last season, he was in his feelings. You know, he was going through some stuff. His performances were just not good. So I used to be like, no, we need to get rid of him. You know, like not get rid of him. Sorry, he needs to be dropped until he. Yes. But then there was always that thing of like, no, Rashi has got a goal and an assist in him. All fair and foul.
Yeah.
Then he got into this Super Saiyan self of him, and had his best tally in United colors ever last season.
Yeah.
And I gave him credit for it because, and I remember you were like, nah, Rashford needs to, I want to see a couple more games. Then I'll be convinced.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's all cool. It's cool. But let's enjoy him because he's doing the business. And at that time, he went on the streak. I don't know how many games those were. Like all comps. He was just scoring goals.
Yeah.
He was putting in the performance. Then he had a little dip. Then he came back. Like a little bit, you know? So all well and good. At that point, he had not yet signed his contract. like a new contract. He got his contract, dog. Then his performances dipped. I know you don't believe. I know it might sound weird, but then apparently this is a thing, and I've actually experienced it in my football journey where players they change tune the moment they've signed the contract. Like they do everything in their power to get the contract, then they change tune. So I'm not saying that that's what he did, but his performances started to tank after that. Here's a very interesting stat that I don't know, maybe if you've heard about it, but it is a stat that is coming out. In the last 20 competitive games, Rashford has scored 4 goals. That doesn't sound good to the player that we are depending on to always provide those goals on those assists every now and then when his performance is at the current moment. Because Rashford at this point, he's not a child anymore. He's not that guy that we're going to say like, nah, let's give him time. No, he's a senior player. He's earning a big contract. So the responsibilities are on him. He has to perform. There is no question. This thing of him not trusting his teammates, he needs to get that shit in check because it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. You know, I saw that one in the extended highlights. I got so mad. Like, I was like, imagine if I watched this during the live game, because Rasmus gives Rashid the ball and makes him sprint into the box. Rashford is supposed to give that ball back. He has given passes like that before with his left outside. Why didn't he fucking do it?
Yeah.
When I heard the stats about him not scoring in only scoring 4 goals in 20 games, that further emphasized my point of like, nah, there's something wrong. And it needs to be sorted out. We cannot keep on saying that, no, Rashi is going to win us game when at the current moment, his numbers don't make sense. For me and Rashi, I'll butt heads with him because of the expectation and the responsibility that he has. He's the number 10 at Manchester United. You know, he could be the future captain. I'm not saying that he is, but he could be. He's a Manchester United through and through. So this thing of him being in his fields, that has got nothing to do with the club. He needs to get his act together. And if he's not going to come in there and support and give the passes, remember I compared him to Liao from AC. Bruh, watch that guy. I've been watching a lot of football of wingers just doing their fucking job. What Flashy? What is he? He says he's a left wing, but he's not doing what left wingers do. Sometimes he finds himself. You know, I've also noticed. Here's a funny thing. You might even be surprised. Even during the England game versus Scotland, Rashi was drifting towards the middle. I think I've pointed this out before. I'm like, why does Rashi? He says he likes the left, but he always finds himself drifting into the middle and trying to find places and what, which I get because you know you're trying to look for space or trying to get in the game and touch the ball. And I'm not saying that I'm by no means trying to go too much on Rashi, but man, you look at our performances. You look now, we're back to what we were last season, where we were not scoring goals and we were conceding so much. What is the point of Rashford? What is the point? We have to hope that he's going to give us a good game. These are my questions. Why isn't the question of being dropped being asked being asked about Rashford? Now I know this is back, and it goes back to my guy Erik Ten Hag as him being the manager, and then that might be his favorite player. I get all of that, but for me, with Rashid's performances at the moment, I'm just not happy. I'm not happy. He needs to get more. Like, nah, D. Like, I am just not happy. I looked at the highlights. The highlights that they showed, they were just showing Rashid doing so much. And when you look at them, it's like, oh my God. Whoa, Rashid was going at these guys. But man, that was frustrating to watch. And then to see how easy Brighton just waltzed in our box and put in those sublime finish. Onana, like, my God, this goalkeeper, what's going on? Some of those goals, David De Gea would have stopped them. I'm sorry to say that, but David De Gea stopped. I think the third goal and the Pascal Gross one, because those are the ones that he's good at. But anyway, I've said so much about Rashford, my guy.
Yeah, I think, yeah, man. You know, the first thing I want to start with is the whole thing about the contract situation, because look, I don't know much about it, but I do know I used to joke a lot about it in the past. I'd always, tell my brother to say, like, you must notice Fellaini and Young. Every time it comes close to transfer season, these guys are just smacking in goals.
You were not joking, D.
Like,
is a thing. It is a thing.
As soon as they've got their contract, fam, it's just back to the same wishy-washy performances. But look, man, you brought up something interesting about Rashford.
Yeah.
And you said that he scored 4 goals in the last 20 competitive competitions.
Yeah.
You know what, Ben? And we spoke about this in one of our podcast episodes, and we spoke about these players, how if one player, like, it's hard to judge one player, because even if you play well, you're still gonna be judged on the collective of the whole team.
True.
So even if you're on good form, how can your good form be reflected if the team is not on good form? You understand what I mean? If Bruno is making world-class assists, but you're not putting them at the back of the net, it makes it look like Bruno is being sloppy. You understand what I mean? If he's making passes, you're not getting at the end of them, it makes him look sloppy when he ain't. So now it brings him down. So with this stat, like, I'm not seeing it. Like, for me, the bigger worry with this,
I'm just concerned about it.
Yes, no, I get you. I get you. Now, the bigger worry for this stat, like for me, is that Rashford was literally our number 1 top scorer last season, and he was literally the highest goal scorer for Manchester United last season. So if it means Rashford scored 4 in the last 20 competitive competitions, then that means it's a bigger problem then. Because then who else was scoring the other goals? Who?
Last 20 competitive games.
This team that, sorry?
Games. Last competitive games.
Yes.
All the way up until last season, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
you understand? We only played 5 competitive games this season, right? So that means who else was scoring the last 15? Who was scoring the, not 15, but who was scoring the other goals in the other 15 games?
We were not
because we're literally only relying on Rashford to score the goals.
Yeah.
And there's no one else scoring the goals.
Yeah.
So this stat is, yes, it reflects bad on Rashford, but it reflects bad on the entire team.
True.
And that's what we've been speaking about. We don't have goal scorers in this team.
True.
Rashford was our highest goal scorer last season. If he's only scored 4 in the last 15, then that's a bigger problem stat for the team, and not only on Rashford.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
You spoke about him being a left winger and he should do what he's supposed to do. And I remember this conversation we had in the group when we were talking about Bissaka and Dalot, right? Rashford, I don't see him as a left winger. I see him as a left forward. You understand?
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a left.
Thank you.
Winger.
That's that's the fucking word.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, man, those stats, they are worrying and they are concerning, because you're like, as a winger, I'm not really like, you know what I mean? I would have been judging you like how I judge Anthony. You know, I wouldn't be judging you like the judgment will be different.
Yeah.
But in any case, right? Yes, everyone's angry at Rashford. I'm angry at Rashford. But you know what the pissing part is? And it's something that I'm going to touch on it briefly because I don't want to talk about it, because I said this has got nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Yes, the overall arching problem is the Glazers.
Thank you.
But the transfer window, the transfer window is closed. There's nothing we can do about it, right? We can cry day and night, afternoon, tea time, whatever. It's not going to make a difference tomorrow. It's not going to make a difference during the weekend. So continually arguing about this whole thing about, oh, the greater problem is the Glazers, is not going to solve anything. Let's deal with what we can deal with that's in our control, right? Cool. We don't have the players. Everyone's angry at Rashford. Drop Rashford. Cool. Where are we going to start? And don't get me wrong. This is not me advocating for Rashford to start, right? If I could drop him, I could drop him. But I'm just looking at, if we drop him, who are we starting? Anthony, out in Brazil solving his what allegations. Jadon Sancho is no longer in favor with the manager. Martial, we don't even know what his situation in. Rasmus Højlund has just come into this team coming off an injury, and apparently he was not even fit to play the whole 90 minutes. That's why he had to come off early for Martial.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Garnacho, we've just seen that this whole 90 minutes thing doesn't work for him. So if we drop Rashford, who are we going to start? That's the most irritating part. And I'm not asking it because I'm, like I said, advocating for Rashford to play.
I know.
I'm just asking that question. Like, I'm so frustrated with Rashford. I want him to be benched. But now I'm thinking, then who the fuck are we going to start if we bench Rashford? Who? You know what I mean? We don't have any options. Because even if you say, okay, we'll start Martial's not up to scratch. You know? Because in all fairness, Martial would, if both were fit, right, and we had an option to be on the left currently, I'd rather have Martial.
Thank you.
Because I know Martial's making those passes to what you call this, to Rasmus, without a shadow of doubt.
Or
I know Martial's making
overlapping fullback.
And exactly, or do the overlapping thing. 99% of the chance. And Rashford needs to start doing that more, you know? So yesterday's game, just to bring it back into the game and not to really like, you know what I mean, talk so much about it. We had some comment in the group about it's too late to experiment this season. We just got to move forward. But I'm like, we're already experimenting. So why not?
No, because the way I was seeing it is that
if there's really a problem between starting Dalot and Bissaka, and I know obviously I've said this before that I wouldn't want to see them both starting because what if one gets injured, then it creates a bigger dilemma. But why don't we go 5 at the back? Because I was literally thinking Dalot plays left back, you know, right back, sorry. And then you have your center back trio of Bissaka, Lindelof, Martinez, and then you have Reguilon, right? And then when we're going into the attack, either Martinez or Lindelof can move up into the midfield with Casemiro to hold. And then you've got one Bissaka and either one of the two at the back holding, you know? And then, of course, you've got your 4 backs in the flanks moving up the pitch. That way you get the defensive attributes of one Bissaka and you have your offensive attributes of Dalot. Because right now, we don't have a number 7 to start because they're both, you know what I mean? And he doesn't want to start Pellistri. And then, of course, you're going to have Casemiro as center midfield, Bruno just behind the front of Rashford, Rashford and Rasmus. So basically, play Rasmus and Højlund as the front 2. You know what I mean? And then you use Reguilon and you use Dalot down the flanks, and then in the middle of the thing, you're going to have Casemiro and Bruno controlling that. And then you're going to have that back 3. Like, personally, that's how I would do it, especially going into this match against Bayern Munich, because I just think it's going to be so unfair. Because if there was ever a match to start Pellistri, it should have been against Brighton to gain his confidence in the team, to build that, you know, chemistry, you know, within 90 minutes, to take that energy into the Bayern match. Because throwing him into the deep end for the Bayern match, I think it's really unfair on the player. Because now you're going to put him up against, if he's going to start him, if he's going to be like, okay, you guys want me to start Pellistri, let me start him. I think it's unfair giving him that opportunity against Bayern. Because Bayern's a fucking strong team. And then when they come and wallop us, it's going to be like, you see why I didn't start Pellistri. But I'm like, but that's unfair because his first game is against Bayern. You know, how do you want him to fare against this strong team? And also, how do you expect him to fare against players that at the moment are lacking in chemistry and not playing well as a collective unit? You know? So if anything, it's like Ten Hag just screwed himself up
in this game against Brighton,
because whatever he puts out against Bayern, it's going to be judged unfairly, you know? So I don't know, fam. I don't know because, again, like I said, he takes out McTominay, he brings back the normal midfield 3, we get walloped. You know, it's easy for someone to come and say, you see, it doesn't matter who I start. You know what I mean? So we needed to win that game against Brighton. And it's just unfortunate that we went and lost it because McTominay wasn't doing anything in the midfield. You know, he wasn't adding any value to the team. Rashford wasn't doing his job, making the passes that you're supposed to make. And again, for that second ball, you know, Dalot should have closed down that should have closed down Lamptey and not even given him the space or the opportunity to find a pass into the box that led to that goal. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So the fault, like I said, it's both on the players and the manager. The blame lies on both of them because I get, yes, players started out of position and the correct players not started, but again, they just didn't play. And there's something interesting that I was listening to Beth from the United Stand this morning, and she reminded me about how Arsenal used to complain when they used to lose, and she said, "I don't have a problem with United losing. It's just the manner in
Arsenal fans used to bark that a lot.
like, look, we don't mind losing, but losing without a fight. You know what I mean? Losing like you don't care. You just get on the pitch. You don't put in effort. You're not playing cohesive football. Like, go and lose.
It will be fine. We'll say, pick your shoulders up, get your head up.
You're going to get the next game. Don't you go and lose and you just played like absolute twats. I'm sorry. I can't get behind that. Like, go and lose with dignity. Don't go and lose like you didn't even want to try in the first place. That's where the big problem is right now with United, and that's why we're such an we're such an uproar, because it's the manner in which we're losing. We're just losing very disgracefully.
All right,
yeah, man.
No, man, I hear you. I mean, I hear the uproar from people about the lineup, and I totally understand it. But I feel this is just what I'm thinking. I don't know what it is. I've just noticed a pattern, with managers at United. And I feel like our manager right now, just based on the little that has been happening, like people are saying we shouldn't blame the Glazers. Cool. That's fine. We understand, but we're going to continue blaming them because no matter what we can say and think, the team that we have right now, whether you like it or not, it is a fact. This is not what the manager wanted. The manager wanted players to go out and in. Now, I understand. Now you look at the international break, how it panned out. Some of the players had a very good international break. You understand? And in particular, we talked about was Scott McTominay. You understand? Now, I don't know if this was in their thinking because everybody seems to think that, no, listen, D.
No, I hear you.
Falls into the pattern that I'm talking about of a manager putting in players that I don't want to say the media or what people are insinuating or are sort of pushing a narrative like put this player. Now I'm not saying I don't know if my manager is in that state, if he's feeling some sort of pressure from people to play the players that are not supposed to be played, but I'm noticing a pattern. I don't know if you even in his press conferences, he feels like he's resided, and that is not a good sign. I don't know if people are picking up on that. For me, that is not a good sign. Now, I don't know if that is, like I've always said, one of the things that I appreciate and love about my gaffer is the fact that he's a football man. That is the one quality nobody can take away from him. Nobody can take from him. You know what I mean? So whatever he's always going to do when it comes to our team, he's always going to look at it in a football manner or he's going to look at it in a footballing way. So he's always going to tweak and do whatever he did. Now, obviously, that experiment, if that was an experiment that he did, it didn't work. Because clearly, Scott McTominay was deployed in such a way that we all know how he's deployed. Because I saw for one instance where I was thinking, wait, Scott, why aren't you closing this guy down? It's weird. It was just a small part of it. And I was like, close this guy down. Close him down. Why aren't you closing? Why aren't you? And I realized that people will never listen to us because they don't watch our team the way we do. We know what our players, the quality of the play, like what our players bring to this table. Scott McTominay brings a different sort of quality for Scotland because they deploy him in a very different way. But when it comes to United, it just doesn't work. people are always just going to keep on bantering us. Like, no, play Scott McTominay, play Scott McTominay. People are pushing this thing of Harry Maguire. They're like, oh, I'm sure Harry Maguire is sitting there thinking, oh, this defense are conceding goals. I fancy myself being in there. Like, I should be playing. I should be starting. Nonsense. You don't work for us. It doesn't. You playing in our starting lineup doesn't work. You understand? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel this. I don't know. Maybe it will explode. I just feel like my gaffer is just dealing with too much. And on top of that, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's messing with his judgment. I don't want to say that, but I just have this feeling that there is some sort of surrender in his eyes or in some of the things that he says. Like, listen, I've said what I've said, and he has put it out there so many times in his interviews or whatever. He has stated what he wants. He has said, in order for us to catch Man City or Arsenal, if you want to be in that level, you need to invest. He started this a long time ago. Went into deaf ears. Now, there was an argument of like, okay, the players that he bought, why did he buy them? I had this theory of like, listen, okay, he bought these players. People are asking themselves why. What if, like all other managers, that was the only option that he had? Think about it. Because you look at the signings that we've got, there was not really any contest about them, except maybe Rasmus Højlund with PSG. You know, maybe. I don't know. And maybe Onana. But not so many players or not so many clubs went after the players that we went for. These were players that the manager was thinking, listen, in the circumstances that we are in, I think I can try and organize something to get this player in here. It just based on the resources that I have. Now, where does all this blame come from? Where does it go? People don't want us to blame the Glazers because they want us to
pushing a different narrative. Like, nah, the Glazers, stop blaming the Glazers. The Glazers did what they gave you the
money to pay for the players that you guys have them now. You guys have spent 400 million, blah, 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 blah. Was it spent correctly? Did you give us the money at the time that we wanted for the players that we wanted? No, you didn't. Now we are stuck with the players that are there that have been available. Bruh, you look at some of the players that we were linked with. Bertrand. We went mental when we heard Bertrand. Now, you might think that Bertrand is a wild pick, but what if that was the only option? Like, out of the best options that he was given, which is Kak, obviously, Bertrand was the only one that looked desirable or could do a job. So our manager is now falling victim to this Glazer thing. The Glazers push this thing. They don't give the manager, they don't back him the way he does. The manager now goes there and does these things, makes questionable decisions based on the squad. People ask questions. They forget that the Glazers have caused this thing, turn on the manager and start saying that, nah, we need to look at, you can't keep on blaming the managers, the Glazers, because they gave you the money. But it's deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. As long as the Glazers are in this squad, I was telling my boy, as long as we are under the Glazers regime, there is no manager in this world. I don't care Pep, I don't care Klopp, I don't care Poch, I don't care Tuchel, I don't care whoever cannot come and solve the problems that at Manchester United football-wise. It is impossible. Because you know what happens? They will dangle him with the first fruit his first season. Make him think that, yeah, we can get you some players, but then he will make the plan that he will try and do come the next season when he wants to now pick up the momentum that he wants to do. Then they disappoint him. Then he starts making, okay, fine, these are the players that I have. I'll make do with what I have. This is the thing that I was always talking about. The manager will always make do with what he has. But then, he's making these decisions. Oh, people have changed focus. Let's not blame the Glazers anymore. Let's blame, the players are not, I blame the players. Because I feel like the manager is giving them instructions like, yo, guys, this is what, and here's another thing that's concerning me, D. Yeah. You know, when I was talking about these hints, another hint that people should pick up on is this past game. I was watching the interviews. Our manager was saying that we played good. How This was an Ole thing. This was a thing of Jose Mourinho when he's trying to back the players, just trying to sort of mask a bigger problem. There's no way we played good when we were thrashed 3-1. There's no way. Why is he saying it? I love my manager, but why is he saying it? Is there something that we are not picking up on? I am picking up on something. Something is just not vibing with the manager right now in the club. So I don't get this thing of people saying that we should stop blaming the Glazers. No way. There's no way you can blame this team without blaming the Glazers. Kim Min-jae was supposed to be a center back at United. Didn't get him. We needed a striker. Kane, blah, 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 blah. We got Rasmus Højlund, but he's injured. What else? Midfielders. We got midfielders that we are questioning that, but then we needed them in a better place. We got Sofian Amrabat, just one. But then there's still so much dead wood, so much whatever. The Glazers, I'm sorry. I will always blame the Glazers. Partly the players and the manager. The manager and the players are dealing with what they have. People need to understand that. They need to get that. Because if we had what we had, I don't think we'd be having this conversation, honestly. But yeah, man, that's my thing. Because I was feeling like, when I said I had a theory, that this is what I was thinking. Because I keep hearing quickly people jumping on like, no, don't blame the Glazers. I'm like, hold up. How? How do we not blame the Glazers? It makes no sense because our problems are there in front of us.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
You know what, man? I agree with 100% of what you're saying. I think, let me just clarify on my end. And I think maybe there's a miss.
No, it's not on you because I understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
But then I'm talking about there's a narrative that is floating around, because this is our community. And
100%.
Yeah. So
I think
to address that. Yeah.
I think in terms of this, right? I think it's split in terms of the community and the press, right? And you're always going to have your haters, and I'm sort of like merging the haters and the press in one bubble, which is wrong. But
it makes sense.
You're gonna get trolls out there who are just like, oh, you can't blame the Glazers, this and this and this. But I think for the other ones, where they're sort of like being misunderstood is like when I come out and say like, I do not want to blame the Glazers for this game.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying that the ultimate problem is always going to be the Glazers. Talking about putting the focus on the Glazers are the problem, I believe is you're putting the focus on the wrong situation at hand, right? Because now I believe, like the way you have your theory, I believe it also plays into the minds of the players. Because now the players can go out there, have a bad game, and know that the next day they're not going to be spoken of. Because the media and the United fans and everybody else is going to come out and say, we lost yesterday, not because Rashford wasn't putting balls in the box. We lost yesterday because of the Glazers. We lost yesterday, because Scott McTominay contributed nothing in 90 minutes. But the focus is going to be, we lost because of the Glazers. And my fear is that we are allowing these players to have bad games because the focus is going to shift from it wasn't the players' problem, it wasn't Ten Hag's problem, it was the Glazers' problem. So I'm saying, look, we know the problem is the Glazers. You understand what I mean? What the point of game after game week, we're still pushing this narrative because we know it's there. Our opinions are never going to change, But you can't, Ben, immediately after the game, your first comment out of your mouth is, we lost because of the Glazers. I refuse. That shouldn't be the first comment out of your mouth. The first comment out of your mouth should be, we lost because Rashford wasn't putting fucking balls in the box. We lost because Scott McTominay had no business being in the midfield. We lost. That's what I want to hear. You can come later with your opinion about Glazers. And like I said, that's always going to stand.
That's true. Now, if you put it like that, it makes absolute sense.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's why I see just so frustrated because instead of us addressing the real issues on the pitch and what's currently at hand, We'd rather spend our time going on about the Glazers. I'm like, guys, we know they need to leave. This is not going to happen overnight. What can happen overnight is trying to figure out what the hell is going on, which players should be starting and shouldn't be starting, and which players should be held accountable for not playing right. That's how our current issues on the pitch get solved. I'm not talking about Joe Glazer. That's not going to change anything on the pitch. You understand? We can only deal with it, unfortunately, when the time comes to deal with it. You understand? Then we can go out there with our and rally for these guys out. The problem, yes, it's them. Ultimately, I get it. It's them. They're the big problem. If they bought the players that we're supposed to have, we wouldn't have been having these problems in the first place. Like you said, this thing has been happening for years with all the managers. Ten Hag was not the first one. You know what I mean? Van Gaal came and said the same thing. You can't expect us to be competing for this if you're not going to invest. Mourinho came and said the same thing. You can't be expecting us to compete for the best if you only want to be giving me this. Ole was a puppet. We're not even going to get there. Ralph Ragnick said the same thing. You understand what I mean? Ten Hag is coming and saying the same thing. You need to invest. Yes, he didn't get the players that he got, like you touched on, and said that Ten Hag is getting players that will probably third, fourth, fifth option. And it's always so frustrating how we never get the players that other clubs are also interested in. We know we're always getting these other players that, you know, they're good but not good enough. You know what I mean? The players that we actually need, we don't get them. You know what I mean? No one was running after Mount. No one was running after Onana. You know what I mean? No one was running after who's this other player that we got, Regulon? No one was running after Johnny Evans. Why are they doing it at our club? Do you understand what I'm saying? We wanted Gravenberg. Everyone was running after Gravenberg. We didn't get him. Do you understand what I mean? People were making bids for Kane. We didn't get him. You know, we're making bids for who's this Nigerian striker at Napoli? What's his name again? Sorry? Victor Osimhen. You understand what I'm saying? So I 100% get your point in saying that, you know, yes, we bought players, but the manager hasn't been backed the way he's supposed to be backed. He hasn't got the players that he wanted. And now he has to deal with what he has. Very unfortunate. Do you understand what I mean? And we feel for him.
Here's
but
the question.
That can't be the excuse to be like, you know, it shouldn't end up being a Mourinho thing of like, the club didn't back me. I'm just left with these players. I'm just going to sort of give up and give in. You know what I mean? And the reason why I'm saying this is because, yes, we are a big club and we are supposed to be competing for big titles, etc. and whatever. But there are other clubs, man, who are not even getting third pick options that we're getting, that if they were to play for their club, it would be like a first pick option for them. But how come they're able to go out there and do the business? How come Brighton is playing such amazing football, way better than us? But if you had to compare head to head, position for position, none of those players come on top of ours. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, we don't have a squad to compete at the highest level, but why the fuck are we losing to Brighton? Why the fuck are we losing to Wolves? Do you understand what I mean, Ben? You go and have an argument about, yes, Glazer's problem, we didn't get the right players, we're going to play the stronger teams. But when we're playing the weaker teams, there's no excuse because we have the players to beat them. You understand what I mean? And again, it brings back in those type of situations where you can't come circle back and start talking about, no, we lost to Wolves because we didn't get Victor Osimhen. Are you mad? We played fucking Wolves. We have the team to beat Wolves. We don't have the team to beat City. I get it. But we have the team to beat Wolves. Why the fuck are we losing to Wolves? We need to be beating these teams that we can beat with the squad that we have. You understand? Then we go and start having those bigger conversations about the Glazers. When we're playing War City, War Liverpool, Bayern Munich, then we go and argue about that case. But against Brighton, I refuse. Then it's down to the players and the manager. Then you say, fix yourselves. Fix yourselves. But yeah, man.
All right, man. No, I hear you. I hear you on that. I see we've dived into it, but I wanted to ask you about the. I wanted to ask you about the stand-up players of this game, like in our team. Who are the stand-out players? The players that stood out.
Okay, so players that stood out, of course, the usual Bruno Fernandes. I think he was a standout player. I would say Dalot.
Can you hold that thought, D?
Okay.
I heard Bruno ended up playing center back.
You see,
Okay,
it's
hold
the
that thought.
subs.
Hold that.
Okay.
Now, when you were asking about, like, when you were explaining, like, I was trying to actually remember my thing, but I knew that I had the questions to ask you, so I can remember what I wanted to ask you. So now, like you said, it's very difficult. Like, it's nonsense for us to come out immediately after the game, start talking about the Glazers, right? So then, now I ask, when we get into situations like this where the manager starts making the changes that he did, and the substitutions that he makes, where we now find Bruno now ending up playing center back, that shocked me, because it brought me back to Scott McTominay playing center back one time for Jose Mourinho, which made sense, because at the time Scott McTominay was supposedly a CDM. Bruno is not a CDM. I don't even understand how he managed it, but then they made him play there for some reason, or he ended up there. I don't know how the game ended up. So I'm trying to think, how can we not address that mistake, that chaotic scene? Because the way I pictured it's just chaos. Like, I'm seeing the manager losing his mind and just making wild substitutions because of the players that are there, ignoring the likes of Harry Maguire or even Johnny Evans if they were on the bench. I don't know, to allow Bruno. Like, isn't this a cry out for help? Isn't this like, do you think he might be trying to prove a point? Like, listen, like, wait, is it mental to think that the manager thought that, no, these were the right moves to make, or what? Because we're coming in on him, we're questioning his decisions. So I wanna know, like, how do we go about this sort of situation?
All right. So you see on that one, Ben, again, it falls down on, yes, bigger picture, bigger point. Glazers fucked up. We didn't get a window. Back to my point of, this is Brighton. We have the adequate players, right? Now you go back again to that starting 11.
Is this underestimating Brighton when we already have history with?
Look, it's again, this it's so silly for us to be saying, are we underestimating? Because no top 4 team has these conversations against teams like Brighton. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
this new Brighton.
So you know what, Ben? This new Brighton, right? If you look at their track record against the other top 4 compared to us, it's ridiculous. Literally, when you go and look at, we got smashed 4. Which big team did they go smash 4 goals? 4-0, Ben. 0,
but
0.
They won the games. That's the point.
We didn't put 1 goal against them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So for me, I don't care about the other teams and whatever. You know what I mean? I'm like, look, we're United. We have the players to beat them. You understand what I mean? And again, it comes back to, like, I guess, bigger problem.
Yes,
Ben, so you're telling me that it wouldn't have made a difference if Ten Hag said, I'm not going to start Scott McTominay, but instead I'm going to start Pelestri. I think it's not going to make a difference if he just went with that tried and tested midfield 3 of Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno Fernandes, and opted not to start Scott McTominay and decided to start Pelestri instead. Mm-hmm. Why was Pelestri like the third substitute to come in? Why? You understand what I mean? Because even, I remember the time, even during Jose Mourinho, we complained about the same thing, Ben. At that time, yes, we did not have strong defenders and we did not buy. Mourinho playing, and when he had options, it doesn't mean they need to be the best options, but he had options. Now you're throwing the whole kitchen sink and towel to prove what point? Who does it benefit? Because at the end of the day, you're saying, okay, I'm just going to just throw the whole kitchen sink in the towel. I'm just going to throw random players in to make a point. And then you're going to try and make a point for what? For 5 games. And we're going to lose all those 5 games. And we're going to be fighting for relegation before mid-season. and we're going to be losing points, and you're going to keep on killing the team's morale. For what? What's the end game in trying to prove a point? That's being petty. You understand what I mean? So it's about rising above it all. It's about being the bigger person. It's about being the bigger man. Don't go and say, I'm going to do this just to go and prove a point. You understand? For me, if you got the players to be put in those positions, you'd rather do that. Why are you forcing Bruno Fernandes in a defensive position? Why? Because the substitute was easy. You understand what I mean? You make 2 subs. You bring out Scott McTominay, you bring in Eriksen. You take out Rashford and you bring in Pelestri. What's so difficult about that? What's the issue there? You understand what I'm saying? So there are decisions to be made which are not being made. You understand? It's like us also because we can literally say the same thing about Rashford. You know, Rashford's not making correct decisions because he's out there trying to prove a point. Who does it benefit at the end of the day? No one. So players, go out there and do your fucking job. And manager, yes, we feel for you. We are also angry with you. You understand? But we're not going into games saying, let's go and lose to prove a point. We're going in there and saying, look, we've got your back. You've got players. You don't have the best players. You don't have maybe the players that you wanted, but you have players. Please use Pelestri. Before this weekend game, Ben, we had 4 episodes, maybe even 5. We were talking about, is Pelestri going to start? You know, because Anthony and Thing are not going to be available. Why didn't he start Pelestri? Is that a Glazer issue? That's not a Glazer issue for the Brighton game. That's a Ten Hag issue of him not trusting the player who doesn't like him or whatever. You understand? And he needs to get over it and be like, I need to start Pelestri because it's my only option I have to start, and he can play in that position and he can play it very well. Because if you're going to start Scott McTominay, then the same way you made that decision to start him is the same way you have to accept the result of you starting him and can't come back and start making excuses for it because you put him on that pitch. You understand what I mean? Put Pelestri, don't put Scott McTominay.
I wonder, what is this? I wonder what to call it, because Erik ten Hag is not the only manager to suffer from this thing where they make decisions that just don't make sense, especially for the new generation of football watchers. Like, what they see is obviously what they understand, and what they know what players are capable of. But then, the manager, like Erik, is not the first one. Pep has had it, Klopp has had it, Tuchel, where they put a player that makes no sense and then it flops. And then it really, Pep has done it in Champions League finals.
Exactly.
And, so what is this phenomenon? Let me just say, what is this thing? What is it called? Because you think about it right now, there's this thing that Arteta has got people talking about. He came out yesterday after the game in his interview, and he was talking about how there's certain things that he's regretted in his lifetime as a manager.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he regret not doing last season was changing a goalkeeper, like in the 60-something minutes, like putting in a different goalkeeper to change the dynamics of the game and to offer something different. So by saying that a lot, Arteta got people talking. A lot. People are thinking he thinks he's too clever. He thinks he's a Pep protege or what. So, it kind of falls into that category, because if he does something like that and it flops, it will be one of those things where a manager does something that makes no sense. It makes sense in his head or based on his plan. But how can we call it, man? Like, what do you think it is? Do you think it's a thing, or do you think it's just? I don't know.
I do believe it's a real thing. I think because I remember Fergie also used to do it. Fergie used to put questionable players on the pitch.
Whoa.
And it would be like
he was the master.
Dude, I remember getting vividly upset looking at the lineup and throwing myself around, throwing a tantrum. You understand what I mean? And those are the days when we winning. You understand what I mean? But I would still be like, what the are you doing? Yes, it did out in some games, but some games it didn't. You understand what I mean? So, again, managers are not prone to not get criticism, they also should be liable for the nonsense that they
that's
sometimes.
very
You
true.
understand what I mean?
We're not saying he cannot be criticized. That's very true.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, I again, I don't know what it is, Ben. I don't know what it is. Just like what you said, Arteta came out and said I should have, but I didn't. And again, it's like you sort of want to Ben. It also could be that thing of, when someone tells you like this thing is not gonna work, and you just refuse, and then when you're in that process and you realize it's not working, and you sort of want to force it to work because you're too proud.
It's too late to go back.
It's too late to turn around and say you're right. You understand what I mean? Because you're forcing it so much. So you're finding like in his head, he's probably said this McTominay thing is gonna work, and he left it to the last minute where he couldn't turn around and fix it, and then out of frustration, just like you know what I mean? Because literally, Ben, the subs he was making were just mind blowing. Because after took off Casemiro, I'm like, who's gonna defend? You know what I mean? Instead of taking out defenders, I'm like, what's going on here? Like literally, what's going on here? At some point, the sub didn't make sense, Ben, and I'm like, it's done. It reminded me of Mourinho days towards the end. That last season. It didn't even take long. 4-5 games in, the frustration with Mourinho, he didn't care. It's like you're just doing inky pinky ponky with starting lineup. You know what I mean? And then you look at it and you'll just be like, nah, this guy's given up. Like Mourinho was so evident in the starting lineup. Forget about subs he was making. In the starting lineup, it was evident that this guy was just throwing a dart on a wall and picking players like that. It was that ridiculous. This nigga was picking players out of a hat on that starting 11 because it was not making sense at all. And we don't want to see Ten Hag get to that stage. You understand what I mean? So I don't know what needs to be done to change things. I don't know what needs to happen, but for me, we just can't be having these results time and time again against teams like Brighton. It's ridiculous.
Man, you speak lightly of Brighton. Like that concerns me. Brighton is a very dangerous.
Look. I give Brighton their respect.
I remember you used to. I know you hate Leicester, and Leicester, I get it, but Brighton are a whole different kind of beast, man.
You know what, Ben? I get it, but I get it, and I respect them, and I know that they play well. I have Brighton players in my fantasy, but for me, as a United supporter, you know what I mean? If Brighton is beating us, they're beating us 1-0. If Brighton is beating us, they're beating us 2-1. I can't accept 3-1. I refuse it. I refuse it, Ben.
That's overestimating our quality. We know we have. No, but Deep, that's overestimating our quality, especially based on the evidence that we have.
You're 100% right, and that's 100% down to my fault. You understand what I mean? Yeah. But at the end of the day, Ben, I'm expecting those results against teams by name, teams by players, teams by playing stand, like the collective. You understand what I mean? I'm not refusing Brighton are not playing beautiful football. I love watching Brighton play. Those guys are fuck. You know what I mean? You just don't know what to expect. When they play against City, you don't know. You pause. You're looking at your bet slip, and you're like, I'm not sure here. You know what I mean? I do respect them. But what I don't respect is, and like I said at the beginning of this podcast, is the manner in which you lose to Brighton. Because for me, that I can't accept. Because I understand they're going out there and beating City, but City put in a fucking shift when they lose. You understand what I mean? We give them the game, and that's what pisses me off.
No,
I can't accept that.
No, I hear you. Now I was about to say something, and then just by I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you because I was like,
I don't think I've ever been this touched ever.
Okay, so here's something to think about. Like it's something that I was thinking about as you were talking, and it kind of like ties on to sort of. And I saw this from fantasy. I think our next 3 Premier League games are very winnable games. These are the sort of games where the statement that you loosely said about Brighton, I think it deserves to go to the next teams. I think we're playing Burnley, Crystal Palace, and I think Sheffield, the next games. Those are the teams that if we come there and perform like this and we get battered, then there's a serious issue. I'm actually expecting us to win. I know, like it's weird. I know we got smashed, but I'm still thinking that there's still light at the end of the tunnel.
But
the players bring the quality. As long as they don't bring the quality, we're gonna have the problem. You know what I mean?
I hear you, and this next thing that I want to talk about deserves an episode on its own. So I'm gonna
All right,
reserve it for that.
all right.
And not even like I'm not even gonna bait you guys have to watch listen to it, you know.
They have to listen
But
to it
yeah,
nowadays.
you have to listen to it. That's the only way you're gonna figure out what it's all about. But yeah,
Nah,
man, I
man,
think
that was
mm,
that was a very good episode for today, man. I think we broke down Manchester United properly. I think
yeah,
we addressed, but bro, there's still a lot of big issues happening at
they
United.
are, they are,
And in as much as I understand that we shouldn't blame the Glazers, lest
yeah,
we forget that they are the problems that we are going through. You know what I
hundred
mean?
percent,
Like
100%.
we can't blame them, yes, in terms of the performances that's on the pitch, but
Yeah,
we need to keep in mind that they're the reasons that we are going through this
yeah,
second season
overarching
syndrome.
problem.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
second season syndrome. Every manager
yeah,
goes through it. Gets a very
yeah,
good season first season. The next season, last season we started off bad, but I think this season it's worse, if I'm not mistaken. Well, make that make sense.
it's
You
better.
understand?
We're 2 points better off than last season. We actually haven't
Are we?
yes by 2 points.
Oh, okay. So I mean, when I look
Yeah,
at those things and I just think about like it's the fifth game. Is it the fifth game? I know it sounds like a lot of people are saying like top four is gone. I don't think so.
but
If you are a Man United fan and you believe, no, listen.
can we go? Yeah,
No, if we get our shit together and we don't have these injuries, that man, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is injured for several weeks. He's gone. He is gone for I think 2 months, and apparently he got in against Brighton. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the reason why he didn't start was because they were suspecting he had something. And I guess the confusion and the chaos when he went inside that game, came out of that game, aggravated an injury, hamstring, and he's out. So we're going to be dealing with Dalot and Reguilon. Those are our only wing backs. So if we can get our
yeah, true.
players fit, I think maybe we can go on a young run, but I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, man, D, please close this one for us, man.
All right. So thank you once again for listening to this podcast episode of Glory Reds FC. You can catch us on all your favorite podcast and streaming platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Zencaster, Castbox, Amazon Music. Man, we everywhere. Catch us where you can. Don't forget to check out our new website, gloryredsfc.co.uk. You can jump onto our news articles page and have a look at one of our latest articles. You can also jump onto our community page where we've got links to our WhatsApp group. We've got a link to our fantasy football league that you can join, stay competitive, and also links to our social media platforms where you can follow us for the latest updates. And with that being said, catch you guys in the next episode, and we out. Peace.